Sanjay, can I, before we do any votes or looking at any more maps, can I just show you some blocks, that massing blocks of just what buildings look like? Has 3 stories,
Yeah,
has 1 story. Can we just look at that real quick?
Let's take 5 minutes to do that, right? And then we do have to move on to the rest of the thing.
I might need more than 5, but let me start.
I'm gonna hold you to 5, Ken.
You want me to stop sharing?
I think that'd be fine. Thank you, Matthew.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matthew.
Right. Well, actually, sorry. While Ken is doing that, do we have any other questions for Matthew and Rahi since they're here? I think we covered a lot of ground with them last week and had a lot of questions, and I'm again very pleased. I think where the map is at this point. I think we can always find additional little things. I'm pleased. Are you ready, Ken?
Let's see. Where am I now? Here we go. Let's start off with Mass Ave. And so this is Mass Ave.
You may change your screen share to share the photo.
The content down at the bottom.
Just want to stop your share and then share again and select the photo.
It's right there.
Here?
Mm-hmm. And then
There we go.
and then
Share.
share. On the bottom right there. Good to go.
Okay. This is one area I looked at on Mass Ave. So this is sort of undeveloped. It's 1 story, and this is everybody's favorite Capitol Square.
Yeah.
So if we were to look at this area here, I just took this corner.
That's my street.
I did not know that matter. So you should be able to answer these questions really well then, huh?
Yeah. Oh, my husband loves the chicken farm for that.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I have to go through the whole thing again?
You can hit the forward arrow to move to the next picture
Where's that?
on your keyboard. Forward arrow, go to the next
This one? Up one?
to the side, to the right. Click on the picture.
Okay, so you might need to share.
Yeah. You share your whole screen when you share, so you have to stop your share here.
No.
Yes, please. I'm sorry. That one.
Okay. Well, you'll just have to reshare every time you pull the new photo.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so I'm back on an aerial massing vector, okay? So all the other buildings are already built. Some of the blue buildings are something we can grow over time. I'm not saying it's gonna happen overnight. It could be this is what it could be in 50 years. But I just put a 4-story building there, 15-foot setbacks from the back. Yesterday we talked about. Don't look at the building. I just drew it in such a way where you understand. You know, windows, doors, a little sidings, a little setback, a little play, okay? Just so we see how it is. Right? And I have one. Yeah, just can you minimize that and go back to my downloads, and then nope, right here, non-detailed foil. Yep. So this is a 4-story building in lieu of the other 1-story building that was there. Just so you sort of see how it fits in along Mass Ave, okay? So Capitol Square down there, some of the other buildings there, some of the trees. This is a photograph that I just sort of plopped it scale-wise.
Right, that's the
Okay.
HCA's building, right next door.
What?
Housing Corporation of Arlington, that's
Yes.
their building, right?
Yeah. But, so this is what it could be. Okay, I'm not just showing square blocks anymore like last time.
Right.
I'm actually showing a building.
Yeah.
And you see it in reference to other buildings and streets and cars and people. Okay. So, and then this is as of right, MBTA.
Right.
So then, yeah. Oops. Okay, this is with the bonus. I just want to show you what it looks like with the bonus. Notice that this is also with the, that has retail on the ground floor,
Also no setbacks.
no setback.
Right.
Okay, so you see how it is with reference to the rest of the buildings along Mass Ave. Just so you see it. You know, if you want to bring it down to 4 stories, just prop the 2 off, no setback. Okay, I don't have that here. Sorry, but I'm just going to show what it looks like, the discussion, and we have to get to this point, and so I just did it.
Thank you. Thanks for doing
Yeah, no, thank you, Ken. This is really cool.
Hold on a minute.
And I think that, all right.
So you're gonna give me more than 10 minutes?
Nope, I'm not. We got a lot of stuff to cover. I think this is. I really do like this, Ken.
I want to show you
I think
Broadway.
this
I did Broadway with the firehouse.
Okay, let him do
Okay.
one more. I'll do
one more, Ken. One more.
I feel like
And
this
it's
is-
not because I don't love this,
Let's get
right?
it good. One more story.
It's not because I don't love this. It's that
All right.
we do
This
have
is-
stuff that we have to discuss tonight. So
Okay, this is Broadway coming in toward the. That's the fire station right there. Okay.
Yep.
On the right here, there's a bunch of huge parcels, large parcels. This is like a humongous house.
Isn't it historic?
It's historic.
That's been excluded from our
Well,
map.
I'm sorry.
I mean,
This one is.
not by my choice.
That one is. That one is.
No, I think this one here is, okay, but this one's not.
That is not.
This one here is historic.
Well, if they've been excluded, I know that for sure. I don't know what the reason is. That's what I assumed.
Well, there's only 2 reasons for excluding anything.
Right.
But anyway, please show us what you've done.
Yeah.
I know that house exactly.
Kyle, you had it
Conceptually. It's choosing which one.
yeah.
Is it? Yeah, this one here. So it's right behind a big tree. I couldn't get the tree out of the way, but see that white building back there? That's historic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, well,
It's got columns.
it's not going to go there, okay? But please use that as a figure of scale I'm talking about, okay?
Yeah.
Go no retail.
Big white columns. And my friend used to live in that house.
There's the spot in this community.
Get the real house, yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
So
interesting.
so that's what it looks like. I changed things around. I was,
3 stories?
that's a 3 stories. I thought we said 3 stories as a right on Broadway.
4.
Four.
Nonetheless.
Nonetheless, we
None of
can
us,
argue.
yeah.
Okay. I can copy and paste and all
That's
that
okay,
work.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking, this is what it looks like along that street, okay?
Maybe we can move that historic building. It's been done before. Down Pleasant Street. They moved one.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this is just for example, okay? Please don't take it and
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
I'm picking on someone's house.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that,
No,
okay?
no. And I was teasing
No, it's
about
fine.
moving it.
But it's a big lot.
That's how I was looking at it. I was
Yeah.
looking at what is a
Absolutely.
real big lot, and that is like
And
another,
it's in the center.
Right?
Yeah.
yes, and it's another 24 units.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yep.
right.
Absolutely.
One more, and then,
Looks like we can't start time. It's just one more slow.
here's 4 stories.
Okay.
But retail's below in retail, so there's no setback.
Right,
The
right,
other one had a setback.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So,
It's interesting.
you know,
Yeah.
that's how it looked along Broadway.
I like those little tables you can eat out at.
You know,
Okay.
it's street lights.
Yeah.
I'm trying to,
Right.
you know, if you don't add stuff to it, the entourage, you're gonna lose scale and proportion of what everything's there, okay?
Let me just ask, well, first of all, is there anything kind of, so this, is there a kind of form of analysis? Did it lead you to any recommendations, or you're fairly comfortable, you just wanted to show what was there, what we're proposing?
I just want people to understand the scale we're looking
What we're
at,
talking about.
okay, we're talking about. Because everybody's, all they looked at is maps
Right.
and brown dots and gray dots and this and that, okay? So I just want to introduce, I had gray squares before. I'm not sure you were there at the last meeting.
Yeah, it's at the redevelopment.
Okay, I had all these gray blocks everywhere.
Yep.
And people said, I can't read that. So I decided, okay, let's take a few areas out of those things there, just so people see. And you know, please don't comment on architecture, don't comment on scale or even location. I just want to get,
Well, the one thing that brings up for me, and looking at the scale, is whether, for the buildings that have the benefit of the bonus, whether we should require that the setback apply to stories above the fourth. And I just put that out there as a question. I know it's nitpicky, but when you look at the 6-story building on Mass Ave versus the 4-story building, the way that it meets the street, 4 stories feels very fine. 6 stories starts to feel tall, but if you applied the 50-foot front setback to it,
Yeah.
it would blend right in. Shade would be reduced. I mean, the shadows it would cast on its neighbors would be reduced. You'd get a little terrace up there, perhaps.
Yeah.
And
So,
Do you say setbacks or step backs?
step back to the setback. So,
Okay.
for example, if you had a 15-foot front setback,
Upper story.
but the ground floor is up to the property line because it's commercial, the 5th and 6th floors would have to set back 15 feet.
so Vince, that's actually a really good transition to the next part of the meeting. I want to actually, I have a presentation I want to run through that summarizes all of the setback and things like that, and I think we need to review that and make sure everybody understands all of the things that are there, right? And then I think including some of the things like that that we may need to add to it would be really good. So thank you, Kin. I think this is really awesome. I think we're gonna really need this stuff as we get closer. And I hate to move the conversation along, but I do think that we need to, just because of the time and what needs to be done to get ready for pre-review. So let me share here.
how do I unshare? Just
Red button
just
at the
exit.
top,
Oh,
middle.
exit.
Red button at the top, middle.
Okay.
Okay. Whoops, I lost all of you as soon as I did that. So Rebecca, I'm really counting on you. Tell me if. Okay. So quick summary of what we've done here. Oh, it's starting to get dark. I need to turn the light on. Sorry, folks. Okay. Well, that's too bright, but oh well. So some guiding principles, right? That just to review here for all of us and for people who are watching, right? This is what, the principles I feel like we've been using as guided by public input, existing plans, the master plan, the housing production plan, the fair housing action plan, the equity audit, right? Encourage more housing in a variety of sizes and price points. Encourage housing located near public transit. Encourage housing to provide a customer base in support of local businesses. Encourage vibrant and enjoyable streets. Ensure district is spread across Arlington, and ensure compliance with the MBTA Communities Act. So just reminding us where we are. I think we're all very familiar with this, but again, for folks watching, right, as we're continuing through and talking about the details of each of these places, I think we're going to talk about them in terms of 3 subdistricts: Mass Ave, Broadway, and neighborhood. I think in terms of what we look at on the map, sometimes, we really consider it Mass Ave Broadway and neighborhood, but when we get into the bonuses, we've been treating them a bit differently, and so in this presentation, I'm going to treat them as three separate things. So dimensional controls, right? This is what we've sort of set. This is all very much review of what was in Matthew and Rahi's presentation, right? Front 15, side 5, rear 20 on Mass Ave and Broadway with a max by right of 4 stories. And we set that height of a story last week at 13 feet. In the neighborhood, we said 15-foot front setback, 10-foot side setback, 20-foot rear setback, and again, we kept the 4 stories as our maximum, again, with what we voted last week. And some of the reasons for that, right, is that 4-story buildings trigger elevator and other accessibility requirements. That's not meant to be the only reason, but that's one thing that we've talked about. Let's see. So the overview of bonuses for Mass Ave and Broadway, right? Commercial, our height and setback bonus for a ground floor commercial. We have a height bonus for exceeding 15% affordable housing, and we have an environmental bonus, a height bonus for Sites Gold certifiable. And there's the system and scorecard there. We can talk a little bit more about that as well. We're going to get into detail on each of these things. So the details for each of these. So on Mass Ave, the commercial bonus was plus 2 stories for ground floor commercial with a 0-foot front setback. There's 2 options on Mass Ave for affordable bonus, plus 1 or plus 2, and we'll look at the details of that in a later slide, and then plus 1 for the Sites Gold, up to a max of 6 stories, right, which we just saw a nice picture of from Kin. On Broadway, right, again, our base was the 4 stories, and we said plus 1 story and 0-foot front setback for commercial. There's a plus 1 that's available for affordable, or a plus 1 that's available for the sites. Again, up to a max of 5. And we set 4 stories as our max in the neighborhood, and I think there was not really any desire to add a commercial bonus in the neighborhood. And in terms of affordable and environmental, I think we just, my interpretation of the conversation that we've had is that we didn't feel like we wanted to go beyond 4, and so there really was no bonus to apply. The other thing to mention is that on Mass Ave, which is the only place where you could go 2 stories above, a builder could choose to stack a plus 1 from affordable and a plus 1 from sites. Okay, so that's that. Any questions, or is the seeming?
No, keep rolling.
Okay, great.
Oh wait, Kin changed his mind. He has a question.
Oh yeah, Kin, yeah.
Late question from Kin.
I didn't change my mind. I had a question.
Okay.
The one on the affordable Mass Ave, you said plus 1 or plus 2.
Yeah.
When did we change from that? Did I miss that somehow?
We'll talk about it in just a minute. I'll go through this
last week.
We voted on it last week.
The memo that you got the week before.
Yeah. We'll talk about the details of it in just a moment.
Okay, are you going to add parking in there too?
Yes, we'll get to parking as well.
Okay.
Yep. I should have summarized all the things we were going to talk about at the beginning. So affordable housing requirements, right? So we, where I say require economic feasibility analysis and approval by EOHLC, right? We, meaning the town, are required to do that in order to continue using our existing inclusionary zoning, right, of 15%. So if approved, right, the affordable housing requirements would match Arlington's existing inclusionary zoning policy. And I've sort of summarized that here, right? All projects of 6+ units will include 1 and 6, or 15% affordable units. Rental, those are priced at 60% AMI, but eligible for households up to 70% AMI. Ownership priced at 70% AMI, but eligible to households up to 80% AMI, right? That's, and AMI is area of median income, for those who are watching. This is what we have today, right, that applies to the rest of our multifamily, and we're proposing that that's going to apply the same to MBTA communities, which again requires us to get a waiver, which we believe we can get. Okay, affordable bonuses, Kin. Here we go. Right, so this is what we voted on last week, and which was in the memo that we received from Shayna and Laura the week before. So the base scenario is 15% of units are affordable. We give a +1 story bonus, so 22.5% of units are affordable, and you get a +1 story bonus. If you go to 25%, so 1 in 4 units are affordable, you are eligible for a +2 story bonus. And then those bonuses are only available on Mass Ave and Broadway. And of course, the 2-story bonus is only available on Mass Ave. So this is what was in that memo from Shayna and Laura, and what we voted for last week. Any questions at this point, Ken, or anyone else?
Was it a close vote or is it a majority vote?
Majority vote. In fact,
Yep.
I think everybody voted except Heather, who abstained.
I hadn't had time to.
6-0 with one abstention.
I have nothing to say right now.
Okay. In terms of parking requirements, right, we voted for a parking maximum of 1 space per unit, and we have a 0 parking minimum for residential or commercial. And last week, the commercial was new. That's one we voted on last week, to not require for commercial. So the process from here, we have to finish drafting regulations based on this proposal, right? So the department is working on that. We'll have to submit the map, regulations, and compliance spreadsheet to the state for pre-adoption review. And so, the department is also getting ready to do that, which is part of why we need to make sure we all agree on all of these recommendations tonight. The pre-adoption review, right, will give ARB and town meeting high confidence that we've met our compliance obligations. And, Claire has had a number of conversations with them, making sure that this timeline is going to work. So from there, right, the proposal will go to the redevelopment board, who will be holding public hearings, I believe, beginning September 11th.
Correct.
Yeah, correct. And then precinct meetings, town meeting which town meeting members traditionally organize in the lead up to town meeting. And then town meeting, I believe, is set to begin October 17th, based on the vote from the select board last night. I didn't watch that, but that's what I heard. So that's where we are, what we voted for. There are a couple other things that I wanted to ask, whether we wanted to, this isn't part of the presentation, so I'm going to stop sharing. You can see me again. Any questions or thoughts on any of the stuff that I went through? I thought it was important for us to review it all in one place before the end here, and make sure everybody was comfortable with what was there, and that it reflected our votes.
So
Okay.
is this a time to bring up that step back question about whether or not?
Yeah, so my addendum to the presentation is actually exactly that. There's a couple of things. So upper story building setback limits, what we apply to the rest of the, Steve, you can correct me if I say this wrong. At the 4th floor, we apply a 7.5-foot setback. Is that
Step back.
oh, sorry. Step back. Yes, thank you. So one option, right, Vince, you had mentioned a specific number. One option would also just be to apply, the zoning, that provision of the zoning code as it exists. Or I think today it applies on both frontages, right? We could just say apply it on to Mass Ave or Broadway.
So the current zoning is 7.5-foot step back
Mhm.
above 4 stories.
Correct. Above 3. Or
Above
four.
3,
Well, starting at the fourth.
starting at the 4th. Okay.
See,
I do not like that at all.
I don't either.
And neither do I.
Above 4,
I would
totally
say
understand.
the fifth and sixth floor would step back.
And
Okay, and I want to add clearly so there's no confusion, because we have these discussions in the meetings all the time, from the property line, not from the face of the building.
I'd like to clarify that even a little better, where the way, and so where the redevelopment board has talked about step backs, it's always been relative to a 0-foot setback. So I'd like to propose that the step back be in addition to the setback. So in other words, if you have a 5-foot setback, so then your first couple of floors or let's say it's a 10-foot. No, it's the front. Front is 15. 15 feet. Okay. So 15 feet front setback. If you follow that all the way up, okay, fine. Now the setback kicks in, so now the wall, instead of being 15 feet from the property line, is now 22.5 feet.
At the 5th floor.
Yes.
Yes.
So, but
See, that's fine and dandy when you look at it that way there,
Mhm.
but you're gonna run out of property because most of the property along that
Right.
front, I'm already against the 15-foot setback, all right?
Mhm.
But if you're gonna set back on those 7.5 feet
Well,
up top, you're gonna end up with a hallway there that's like 8 feet wide, and there's nothing else to build. So if you want to give it a poison pill, you got it.
well, no. The reason for suggesting it like that was, as the redevelopment board, we've had conversations of what's it measured relative to, the face below it, or the property line, which is really the side yard setback. And I'm advocating for the second one.
I'm advocating for the first one because if you advocate for the second one, you're not going to have any room up there, and the bonus is useless. And if you really want that bonus to incur affordable housing, then you give them a bonus. They're not going to do it.
So the second one is from
So
okay.
let's go to Vince and Meta, and then
sorry.
we'll
I missed Vince's hand.
Yeah, you were first.
So just my thought process in 2 parts. So first part, as I said, I think I would start to apply any step back above 4 stories. And if you follow the logic, then the step back question only really comes into play on Mass Ave and Broadway, right? Because of bonuses. And at that point, my argument would be that the step back makes sense from the if we just apply what we've chosen as setbacks, which is to say 15 feet from the property line. So if you have a commercial building that comes up 4 stories, a building with commercial on the ground floor comes up 4 stories, then it would set back to the 15-foot front setback and the 10-foot, I believe, 5-foot side setback. And that would be what I would
Right, and it's
So-
only commercial zoning that has a 0-foot setback
Right,
right
so
now.
the other buildings, say it's in a building with some affordable housing that goes up to 5 or 6 stories, it's respecting a setback already.
Ready.
So that is what is giving you
So
some,
no additional step back because it's
Right,
already
because
set back.
that's already
15
giving
feet.
you some kind of.
So if I could
room on the street.
if I could rephrase that, Vince, and then we'll come to you, Meta. What you're saying is essentially the bonus would be 0-foot setback for the first 4 floors, returning to the setback for the 5th and 6th floor. Is that
Right.
accurate? Okay. All right. I wanted to make sure I understood. Okay, Meta. Sorry.
I do not support step backs at all. Not setbacks, step backs. Architecturally, 9 times out of 10, they are extremely ugly, lead to very ugly architectural solutions. All of the older buildings that we like along Mass Ave that are 100+ years old, none of them have step backs. And we are going to reduce square footage and the amount of housing that we will be allowed. And I had one more point, and it just escaped me. The other reason, where this comes from is this, where a step back kind of comes from an urban design point of view, is the cavern effect, which you only really find in cities like New York City when buildings are 30 and 40 feet tall. Mass Ave is at least 150 feet wide. The discussion we've had all along about 4 and 6 stories, in my mind, I have always been imagining it relative to the width of Mass Ave, and I already thought that that was a reasonable height. Therefore, I would say the additional step back is not required.
So I just have a question for Meta. I would have agreed with you until I saw Kin's portrayal, where the 6-story buildings are towering over the much shorter buildings next to them, and they do look like they're kind of overscale. So
You saw that?
I did see that.
I saw it differently, but
That's
okay.
so interesting. My question for Meta is, I understand this issue of the skyscraper, but we're not going to have that. What I'm concerned about is the scale of the building relative to its neighboring buildings, which might not have been redeveloped and probably aren't 6 stories. So
it requires like looking ahead into the future,
Right.
And it requires looking ahead into the future 20 and 30 years, and not relating it relative to what is there now, but into what is the eventual urban fabric that we want to have in Arlington. And so that is where the scary moment comes, which is I think why Kin wanted to show it. And so no matter what was shown will probably elicit that type of reaction from someone. Trust me when I say it's going to be fine. So I'm a very good architect. I've been doing this for 30 years. It's totally going to be fine. And I think that the step backs are usually very ill-considered the way that they're done, 9 times out of 10.
And what about the property owners behind these buildings?
Well,
Because they also, the step back works for the entire floor, right?
no, only on the front
Only on the
and
front.
side. Yeah, so it's no difference for them.
Oh.
Yeah.
So they don't get any
No,
relief.
you don't offset it all around, then you end up with like a little
like
peanut in the middle of the top floor.
Like the Empire State Building.
Well, right, yes. But that's not what.
Why would you build it then? No, but why would you build this little square
Right.
right on the top floor there, and then you have to make 22% or 25% affordable all the units below? You have to look. It has to make economic sense for someone to do that. Now you're taking away that vice. So if you want to look at that way, then fine. But I'm just saying, understand what you're voting on when you vote that way. Because if you do that, it's going to make it harder for a person to build more affordable housing because you're not giving them enough bonus to do that. That's what I'm saying right now, okay? And I want to go back to earlier when we say you offer 1 floor. I'm willing to compromise on that little sentence thing, but 1 floor is not cutting it right now, okay? How many buildings do you see right now with an extra floor bonus because they did more affordable housing? 1 floor is not enough because it doesn't make enough economic sense right now, okay? Because of cost of construction, cost of land, and everything
So
else.
I don't want to revisit this, but you are refuting the memo that Shayna and Laura wrote that had cost analysis.
Just because it's a memo and someone did that, doesn't mean I can't have my opinion on it, okay?
No, you
And
can. I just want to make sure I know what your opinion is,
I'm-
which is you don't agree with the calculations that they did.
Yes, and I'm basing that on what's being built right now. Okay, I'm not basing it on some other thing that someone put a memo on. I'm saying, look what's being built right now, and you tell me. If you say, oh, it's happening everywhere, then I say, okay, you're right. But show me where it's happening.
So Vince, can you go back to the step
just wanted to move the conversation forward, right? And see, Steve, you haven't weighed in on this since the very beginning, so I wanted to sort of see where you were at, and then we'll go back to Vince.
Well, there's part of me likes the idea of keeping it consistent with our existing bylaw, except where our existing bylaw has proven to be problematic. Where
one.
What?
Only for one.
Well, yeah. So I would say that if we were to want something like that, it should be on one face of the building only. Whereas the bylaw currently applies it on, each side facing the street, which could be as many as 3.
Sure. Okay.
Just to restate my suggestion, it would apply in the sense that the setbacks apply, in the sense that it would apply on the front to the tune of 15 feet, and to the side street, if there's a side, you would never be able to encroach on the side setback, so I suppose it wouldn't apply on the side. You're only able to go to 0 on the front, so it would only apply 15 feet on the front.
Right.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, and I do like your rationale for starting it at the 4th rather than the 3rd, just to for sort of meshing with the neighborhood districts. To me, that's a reasonable argument.
I really thought that Kin's images were actually very helpful, and I think these will also be very evocative when we show them to the community. And I think one thing that I'm sensitive to is the reaction when you show a building that goes up 4 stories at the street and a building that goes 6 stories at the street. It makes a big difference. How you architecturally develop that, it can be done well or not well, but let's hire good architects, and then we'll get...
Oh, you don't get to pick the architects. We have no control over that.
No, but we do have control over whether we allow by right 6 stories at the street, or whether we allow 4 stories at the street and then require a setback for anything above that.
So Sanjay, what I'm hearing is either 15 feet or 7.5 feet. And I guess I want to know...
Or nothing.
Or nothing, right? That's true.
Yep.
What is the redevelopment board's view about it being 15 feet?
So the current, well, I can't speak on behalf of the redevelopment.
Well, but actually, I want to say, sorry, before we move to that part, right, I want to say there's a slight difference too, right? Because what Vince is talking about with the 15 only applies to commercial, right, when we have the ground floor commercial and the 0-foot setback, right? The existing bylaw applies to all, right? And so would apply even when you have the 15-foot setback, right? So I'll add my, before we go to what we think, I'll add my opinion to the mix here, right? I'm interested in what Vince has suggested, right? And what Kin is saying in terms of really eating into that affordability bonus, I think would concern me, and we don't have that problem in Vince's
Scenario.
And just
scenario.
And just for restating to make sure I have it clear, I'm just picturing this clearly. In cases where someone opts to take the 0-foot front yard step back, so you're saying they go up 4 stories, and then on the 5th story they come back in 15 feet, which is what the normal front setback would be.
Right.
I'm really warming up to this.
A 15-foot setback at that height is a very big setback. So I would maybe propose a friendly amendment that is reduced, because that's really taking away quite a lot of area, and a 15-foot terrace is not that useful. Yeah.
Big enough for a small tree.
Well, no, you can't put a tree on a roof, and
Facetious.
and also what it will end up being is a roof, not a terrace, because a roof would be the cheapest way to build it. Building a terrace is quite a bit more expensive than building a roof. So what you'll end up with is a roof there, and then a step back. So you're not gonna end up with a nice green space up there, I promise you.
So I guess where I would disagree is that we've set kind of a base scenario in which you could build, say, an affordable, sustainable 6-story building, but it's set back 15 feet. Okay, that creates a certain shadow for its neighbors, it creates a certain presence. If you add the commercial, then the basic volume of the building doesn't change, except for the first 4 stories. But I think there's a certain simplicity to having the top 2 stories that kind of stay at the same setback. So 15 feet, what you do with that space, that'll depend on individual choices. You can put a tree on a roof.
I don't know, I'm starting to agree with Meta that I don't want Empire State Buildings all over our town because we have 4 stories and then 15 stories before you can build the next 2 stories. I think
Can you say that again? Because I didn't understand you. You said,
you know, you have 4 stories at the street and then you have the next 2 stories set back 15 feet on top.
so how's that being like New York City, big towers?
No, because the Empire State, never mind. It's a bad metaphor. But 7.5 feet, which is what we already have, seems like a reasonable compromise. And does it give a sense of not towering
Yes.
over the street?
7.5 feet, most of the porches on houses are around 8 feet.
I was-
So
I was
it's
what?
approximately that scale.
I would support 7.5 feet.
Yeah.
I still don't support it, but that's better than.
Sanjay, what about a motion?
Yeah, do we have a motion?
Well, first of all, Liz, are you okay with compromising 7.5 feet? I mean, we're talking about, I don't want to just go over what you just said. You wanted 15, so we're saying a compromise of 7.5, would you be okay with that?
Our base setback on Mass Ave is 15, or is it
7.5.
our setback? Setback.
Setbacks.
We did have
15.
15, correct?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So for
15 with no commercial is what you guys voted on 2 weeks ago when it's all
residential.
So we put some trees there. And me and you were the only one that voted against that.
Yeah.
Okay? So,
I wasn't there, so I would have voted.
but they were still outvoted us.
I know.
Okay? But besides that, so what I'm just saying, instead of going back full 15 feet, let's do a compromise of 7.5 feet. It sort of falls within what we already have that in our zoning, and that's what we've been doing. And I think the scale is appropriate. I think that is correct. 8 foot is the usual porch for a house, and that distance people would put a green garden up there. 15 feet people wouldn't put a green garden up there; it's just too expensive. But 8 feet or 7.5 feet is reasonable. And then we talked about some green space up there, and it helped with the green island, and I mean we'll go yada yada if I won't go there. You know. So I was wondering, are you okay with that? Or if not, then we just vote and we just vote against it.
The right number is probably somewhere between, you're right, it's probably somewhere between 7 and 10 or something like that. And you know, honestly, I don't know what the best way is to decide what the right number is. If 7.5 feet is consistent with the rest of our bylaw, then I'm comfortable with that.
So motion for.
But
Oh, okay.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Just to understand, are we applying that then on just the front of the building?
On the front.
Okay.
On the front. When it's in the corner,
And
you
only,
got 2 fronts.
and only when, that's what I'm trying to understand.
Well, that's what I'm trying to tell you.
When, for example, a building that is it has commercial on the ground floor, therefore it's 0 to the front, but it's 10 to the side.
Not if it's on the corner.
It would be 0 to the side.
10, it would be 10 to both front, 0 to both fronts.
A
If it's
corner
on
lot
that.
is considered 2 fronts.
A corner lot would be 0 to both fronts. So in that case, you'd apply the 7.5 on both. So it's the front setback, even if there's multiple front setbacks.
Correct.
That's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Okay, Steve, go with your motion.
So, this may need amending, and I will, but I'll put it out there and we'll see. So a upper story setback of 7.5 feet, applying to, where there is to where the building has a 0-foot front yard setback, starting at the 5th floor. And I was going to say on one face of the building, but it sounds like Kin is asking for 2.
Well, that's what the zoning is.
Whenever there's a front.
When you're in a corner lot, okay, the 2 sides that face the sidewalk is considered front.
Okay.
Okay, if you're in an inline lot, then that's the front is the one that features the front, and that's just how you see zoning. How I see zoning.
Sanjay, did you get that?
I'm gonna suggest we reword it slightly to instead of applying a step back at the 5th floor, say it that our bonus is modified, right? That our bonus is 0 foot for ground floor, 0 foot front setback for ground floor commercial, with a 7.5 foot step back at the 5th floor. Would that
When there's a
be
bonus. When there's a bonus.
Right,
when there's a bonus which triggers the 0 foot front setback?
So you're essentially making the bonus less. You all realize that, right?
Yes.
So less affordable housing.
No,
No,
it
no,
doesn't apply to affordable housing because they didn't have
Only
a zero
commercial.
front. It's only commercial that's ever had a 0 front setback.
Okay, but you could still end up with a situation where there was commercial on the ground floor and 6 units, or 5 or 6 units, and you're on that threshold, but you've scraped away enough
Yes.
space that they can't then build 6 units.
Yeah.
You
No, you didn't follow?
You can't,
No,
you can't regulate everything, so you
Yeah.
can't get away with it. You just do the best
Yeah.
you can with the mess is, because if you do it so complicated,
I'm not trying to make it complicated. I'm arguing against the whole thing.
okay.
Well, I have a question for Ms. Ritter.
Yes.
Do you know the status of the articles that the ARB was planning to bring forward? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there was one of them that would alter the upper story setback requirements.
It would
No, it just clarifies it.
clarify it.
Clarify.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
okay.
an
Because right now, 3 of the board members believe that setback starts from the property line. 1 is arguing that it starts from the face of the building
Mhm.
below. And we're just gonna
So
clarify,
we're not changing the number of sides.
no.
Okay. All right. I still like the idea of one side, but I will compromise.
Do we need a
Okay,
spoken motion, or are we?
You want me to do it, Sanjay?
sure.
Okay, motion that the upper floor setback, the bonus setback at the 5th and 6th floor will be 7.5 feet from the property line on all
Great.
on all street facing buildings.
I can second that.
Great. Let's take a vote. Kin,
Yes,
Vince,
Yes.
Meta,
No?
Rebecca,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. The motion carries. I have I have a couple of other things that I wanted to make sure that we get to. We don't have a whole lot of time here. One thing that I'm hoping can be fairly quick, but I wanted to make sure we explicitly said it. In the presentation I gave, I summarized the affordable housing requirements for our current inclusionary zoning, the limits we set for them, right? The 60% AMI set for rental, 70% AMI for ownership. I just wanted to be clear that we're applying those same standards to our bonuses and what we do here. I think the answer to that is yes, but I just wanted to sort of make sure I said that explicitly and nobody felt like they needed to object to that.
That was my understanding, but did you see the exchange between Shayna and Laura? It was in regard to an email I had sent, not to them.
No, that was just exactly what I wanted to make sure I clarified, and that was the thing they wanted to make sure everybody was clear on.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Let's see here. For the commercial bonus, I believe we need to specify a percentage of the ground floor that constitutes, right, actual commercial use. And I think, Matthew, you might have had a suggestion on that for us.
I did. So,
Would you like to share it?
sure. 60% of the total ground floor area must be commercial, and that's to allow, unique lobbies and back houses and stuff for the residential above, right? 60% in the total area, and then I think I said about 80% must be facing the street, must be on the street. In other words, you can't bury it in the back, right? The whole point is for the commercial to be activating street.
It must. All of it
Yep.
must.
And you
No, you cannot make all of it, sorry.
fiddle with those words.
All of the front facing has to be commercial.
No.
No,
you
you
need to
think-
have an
you think-
entryway for the residential.
Oh, I see. So what
Yeah.
is the percentage?
80%.
80%. Sorry, that's what I missed. Thank you.
Hey, Matthew,
That's why I was like, all of it.
would you be okay if we just simplify that and said that no housing units on the first floor with this commercial?
No. Offices end up there.
I would argue against that. I think that there's some building types, smaller building types that might not have an elevator that would need to place an accessible unit on the ground floor to meet FHA
Yep.
regulations. So this doesn't apply to a tall building with an elevator, but some of the missing middle type buildings that we might have would need a ground floor handicap accessible residential unit.
I wouldn't want to encourage these little small residential units on Mass Ave and Broadway. I see what you're saying for a house or a townhouse, and that makes a lot of sense. But we're not. If you do that small scale, you lost your affordable units and everything else. But now it's just these little small. Let's skim under the amount of units we can put in there, and skim under. Get out of the elevator, get out of the affordable units, but we can get that bonus by putting in the ground floor residential. And office is just like commercial space. You cannot exclude that because not every little ground floor is going to be restaurants. You're not going to have 3.5 miles of restaurants on that day. It's not going to work.
So all I can tell you is what I hear is all the pushback on the mixed use. That's been,
But I'm just going to tell you.
well, that may be why that's what we're getting. But
3.5
people are not
miles.
happy about that.
But 3.5 miles of restaurants on Mass Ave, and we're already told that what 30 feet supports.
1,000 people,
Yeah, yeah.
100 people support 30 feet.
Yes. Okay.
I understand.
So if you go divide 30 feet into 3.5 miles, you see how much you would have.
I'm not sure what you're arguing for at this point, right? Do we
I'm
like
arguing for
the
that
60?
office space. I'm arguing that office space is okay on Mass Ave, a doctor's office or something
Okay.
like that, or that's
Okay.
okay along Mass Ave. It doesn't all have to be restaurants. It doesn't all have to be dry cleaners or.
Sure. So,
Steve has his hand up.
yeah, Steve.
I think Mr. Littell's suggestion of 60% of the ground floor and 80% of the frontage is reasonable.
Yep. Great.
Okay. Do we have I think we should vote on that. Do we have a motion? Steve?
Sure.
I think so moved. So moved would be fine.
So moved.
Okay, great.
Vince
Do you have a second?
seconds.
Great.
Vince.
We'll vote. Kin?
No.
Vince?
Yes.
Meta?
Yes.
Rebecca?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well, so the motion carries. Okay, what else? Do I have anything else here that I wanted to talk about? Boom, boom. did we want to consider? We used 13 feet as the height of a story in setting our height limit throughout, and we were particularly as part of that discussion, we were particularly thinking about commercial use on the ground floor and wanting to make sure we were allowing for that. Do we want to consider making, or are people comfortable with that for the 4-story neighborhood district? Yes, Steve.
I think Mr. Littell had a suggestion about that.
Yeah, sure.
If he wouldn't mind sharing, because I don't remember the number off the top of my head.
Yeah, so the rule of thumb, 13 feet, works when you have ground floor commercial with residential above, because the commercial is a little bit more and the residential is a little bit less, and it's sort of fine. In the neighborhood district, it would start to get pretty tall, right? So you're already taller than your neighbors, and 13 times 4 is 52 feet. It's a lot higher than 36 or whatever the current 35. I think you could do fine with like 46 feet. I think even 45 feet, somebody could get that to work. A typical standard floor to floor for a residential development is about 10.5 feet. Some people might go a little higher. Some people could squeeze it lower, but that's a very comfortable number, and I think 45, 46 gives you a buffer.
Well, with just in the interest of allowing for places with slightly higher ceiling heights, and not forcing people to live in places with just a low ceiling, what about something like 12 feet? It brings you to, for a 4-story building, 48 feet, which is reasonable. Go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say, taking our existing, 35 feet and 3 stories, 2.5, but it's, height-wise, it's 3 stories, and scaling that up a story comes to 47 feet.
Yeah.
How do you feel about 11.5 feet?
I feel like getting...
It doesn't really matter.
You're making this minutia stuff.
I
you're
don't
right.
think a foot or two makes it.
We don't hold the builder to the total height, not how much they put in each floor.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to check
They can
that.
make it shorter.
So they can make the
Yeah.
top floor 10 or 11 feet and the other floors, as long as it doesn't exceed this 4 times whatever number you're about to come up with. Got it.
It would make more difference perhaps for like a 2-story or 3-story building that has fewer floors to
It's
distribute
just,
the height.
right.
So you're suggesting 48?
I'm suggesting 48 feet for 4 stories.
Yeah.
I think 46 is also reasonable. So somewhere in there. I mean, we're in the ballpark.
We heard a lot about people being concerned about new housing that was going to loom over existing single-family housing.
Do we want to go with 46 then?
Mm-hmm.
Lower, okay.
I would,
Which turns out to be 11.5.
I would push back. I'm going to argue that the benefit for residents of having the possibility of having nice high ceilings and so forth, for those, that 48 is a perfectly reasonable number. I think that looming is just not the right word for a building that is, 20 or 30 feet from its neighbor and 12 feet higher. Looming is not the right word.
Sanjay, can we vote on 48, and if 48 doesn't pass, then we'll go to a compromise, but I agree with
That
Liz.
sounds.
That's
Okay, so we have a motion.
Motion 48.
Okay.
second.
And this is applying to the neighborhood multifamily district.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Kin,
Yes.
Vince,
Yes.
Meta,
No.
Rebecca,
No.
Steve.
No.
I am a no as well, and so I think we won't do 48. So let's have a motion for a different number.
Make a motion for 46 feet, also known as 11.5 feet per floor.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Great. Kin?
No,
No?
Fitz?
No?
Yep.
Sorry, I jumped the gun.
Okay. Meta?
Yes.
Rebecca?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Okay, so we've set the height in the neighborhood multifamily to be 46 feet, and we will keep the 13 feet per story. And in future, I will include both a stories column and a height column, just so we keep that clear. Okay, it is 9 o'clock, and I believe I have one last thing that we need to, I would like us to discuss, which is we've talked about the sites bonus, and I believe what was in our memo from David versus, well, I just want to Claire, actually, maybe you might be better to sort of talk about what we need to make sure we're clear on here. Would you be willing to do that?
Sure. So it was it was my understanding David Morgan, who's the environmental planner, and I sat down to try to figure out this open space bonus, and he had recommended an evaluation strategy called SITES, which is also like LEED, and it's governed by the same U.S. Green Building Council. And we figured that this would be an interesting way to achieve some open space bonus. There are prerequisites that are involved in the design. There are construction methods that you need to adhere to, and then obviously certainly the final product as well. And so looking at the site's criteria, we went through and determined what would be achievable. I was aiming for maybe a site's silver certifiable. David seems to think that it would be achieving 100 points is something that is achievable in a project that was going to be pursuing this open space bonus. So that's what we settled on, which is actually a site's gold, certification. We said certifiable instead of certified because you have to go through a commissioning process, much like LEED, and it's expensive. This is something that we did in previous places that I've worked. LEED certifiable, not LEED certified. So I think that hopefully that explains how we came to this with sites. I don't know if there was any other.
So just a question from a practical point of view, if it's certifiable and if the USGBC or whoever is not determining that, who determines that a project is complying with the site's goals?
So we would have to, obviously there are design standards that would have to be reviewed in site plan review as for someone who was looking to achieve this. And then there would be maybe an increased level of
the department essentially.
The department would, and ISD as well, the building department would be looking at construction.
when it's LEED, you're relying on a LEED AP to do LEED certifiable, and their site and their name and say that this is LEED certifiable.
Mm-hmm.
Is there such thing as a site AP or something like that? And do we have that in the department that can actually review this and be able to say, I'm a site certified AP, and this is certifiable?
I hate to burst your bubble, Ken, but when I was an intern for the city of Cambridge, I was the one certifying the LEED projects. I said, you know something about construction? Certify the LEED projects. So it's never really a matter of having a LEED person looking exactly at what the developer has claimed that they've done.
There is though.
When we submitted our LEED forms, there's always a LEED AP that signs it saying that, based on their professional opinion,
Your LEED AP or the city or town's LEED AP?
the developer's LEED
The
AP.
developer, the designer, and they may have some liability for whether or not.
It would be incumbent on the developer designer to work with the site's AP certified
Does that exist though?
designer.
The site's
I
AP?
would very brief Google.
Okay.
You can be an accredited professional
Okay.
within the site's program, you have the certification.
Or
The question is, you need a LEED AP when you're going for certification. But what we would be saying is that you're not going for certification, but we are requiring that you have a site accredited professional
Correct.
on the project team, and we're going to run through our internal review of your design.
Also correct. And then I will have someone who's not an intern take a look at those sheets and make sure that there's chief points, post-construction.
Okay, and I'll ask one more question. Sorry about this. When you and Dave looked at this, okay, how, what's the word I want to say? How feasible is it to do that? Is it just something we're adding on there to make the project that much more difficult to do? Because this is just for a bonus, it's not for.
So the way that I see this working is that we'll get a developer who's interested in also providing open space and who already has done a sites project or something like that and would want to avail themselves of the bonus because they may be doing it anyway as part of their own mission-driven development.
It's not for as a right.
It's a bonus. Purely, yes.
Okay. All right, I'm okay.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure that we had that, more thorough discussion here amongst us all. I think the only other thing to really sort of, say is, this is, the detailed zoning of this actually has to be produced for the ARB, and so I think it might be worthwhile if the working group is amenable to sort of, vote to say, Claire and Laura are gonna, work out any last details that come up as they work out that. Obviously, it would still be reviewed by the ARB and town meeting, but just given the timeline here, they do need to get that off to the pre-review.
Claire and Laura Wiener.
Yes, sorry, Claire and.
Working on actually writing the short non.
And I presume you're checking with Stevens.
The only thing I have is, I want to go back and revisit the Heights square box, just because of the elevations there. So you said let's table it, and now we're not tabling it anymore. We're just going ahead and blown by it. So,
sorry, which thing did we table and did not come back to?
Just south side of Paul Revere Road and the grade there.
Oh, yes. Okay. Sorry, I thought we had moved on. I didn't realize
we did move on,
that we felt that was.
Do you have a proposal that you want to make, Ken? Go ahead. Do you have a proposal?
Yes, let's take it off.
So, Ken, I know Paul Revere Road very well. I use that shortcut all the time to get.
Do you speed?
No,
Okay.
I wait and carefully make my way around the traffic coming up and down Park Street. One side of that, basically, the houses are just sitting above the parking lots of the businesses on Mass Ave. The other side is built up into and I've watched some of those houses be rebuilt. It's pretty amazing engineering, actually. But the side that's essentially flat and above Mass Ave, seems to me that the people live in those homes. I'm sure they're happy they're living there, but if they were to ever sell those homes, that they're large lots that could be built at 4 stories, and all they would be towering over is parking lots behind them.
I'm not talking about that.
But that's the side of Paul Revere.
No, I'm talking about the other side of Paul Revere that's colored in it.
No, that's part of what's colored. Both sides of the street are colored, but that's part of what's colored.
Yes, but you're only talking about half of it right now, and
Well,
that little sliver of land is only.
But I would just say that
one
we
house.
have never looked at this lot by lot, and so we're not looking at it lot by lot.
Before we go too far in the weeds, I would just wanted to make sure that Mr. Newton did not need a decision on whether, are you okay with what you got as far as us authorizing Claire and Ms. Wiener to work on the code?
I think it'd be better if we voted on it, if that's okay.
Oh,
Thank you for that reminder, Steve.
Okay.
Yeah, so do we have a motion for that?
So also,
So are we tabling this now? We're not doing this talk now, or?
we're doing a quick vote before we come back to it. We're gonna do a quick vote and then we're gonna come back to it.
Okay.
So I'll motion that the working group authorizes Ms. Ricker and Ms. Wiener to work on the language of the zoning bylaw.
Second,
Kin,
No. want to talk about this now and get an understanding before you do it. You do it. I have all the papers, but I don't want to table this. Okay?
We're not tabling it,
Do you want that to be your vote?
That's my vote.
Vince,
Yes.
Meta,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes,
Steve.
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. Okay, let's return to your right. What would you like to do, or what are you suggesting we do, Ken?
Oh, I just want to go back and say, if you look at where all the blue is, okay, and on the north side of the road is what you're talking about, which is flat with the road, is that little itty bitty portion there. And then if you look at the whole strip all along the whole side there, that's the side that's up, almost 2 stories up. So I'd rather not talk about that small portion. I'd rather talk the large portion. And I just want to say that building a 4-story building on top of that 2-story hill is not the way to go. I like to take that off. That's what I want to do.
but if you do that, you do not have a 5-acre lot.
But that's not the 5-acre lot we're counting on.
It's 7.5, that area in the rectangle. The rectangle is 7.5 acres.
I mean, given the time, would you like to make a motion that we?
Thank you for your
I'd like to make
Yeah.
a motion to delete the south portion of Paul Revere Road that's up on the hill. The rest, that's flat, and I'm okay with that. But
So
I have
before we,
a clarifying question.
yeah,
So
sure.
when we talk about the overall height and we decided it was 46, where is that taken from? Is that taken from the midpoint of the road?
no,
Well, because it is in a lot of municipalities.
not in Arlington.
That's how we defined it.
It's the average of the
The
property
average
line.
grade,
Average at the property line.
average grade at which property line? Or the whole property line, which is like this, right?
Well,
And
it's more
so-
like this.
Right, okay, so it's the average grade of the property, which is somewhere kind of in the middle of the, it would be in the middle of the incline.
The front is the lowest portion, the backyard is another story and a half high,
Right,
and the side yard goes straight up.
so the average would be in the middle.
Oh, I thought you meant in the middle of the street and,
No, right, so let's just say the front property line is equivalent more or less to the street, right, because it has to be not that far.
it's like 2 stories up.
So,
No, the
Yeah.
front property, no, because they all are carved out and then they have parking there.
No, some of them have parking underneath.
Yeah,
may I
So,
read
Steve-
this part?
yes, please.
Okay, so this is 542B5.
Okay.
So calculation of building height. On a lot with a slope of more than 5%,
Yeah.
which is what we're talking about, building height is the vertical distance of the highest point of the roof above the average finished grade of the ground using the grade plane as defined in the state building code.
And the grade plane is if you take the average of the height at the base of the building.
And it goes out like
If
6
the
feet.
front of the building is here and the back of the building is
Zero, and
or
it's-
higher, then it's going to be about the average of this.
About the middle.
That's what you were saying.
So
That's
you
kinda what I was
you get the building in that particular situation where the back of the building is a floor higher. You get a building that was about 4.5 stories in the front.
So would it be too tall, because it'll be higher than 46 feet?
Well, no, not if you, depends where you measure from, so that's the point. The point is that it depends where you measure from and how that, it makes a huge difference, and how that calculation is required to be made. So it's gonna, so if we kind of agreed more or less, grosso modo, that it's in between, it's the kind of the midpoint between the highest and the lowest point, it would be up a half story. And so,
But seen from the back, it would be 3.5 stories.
right,
You know, it kind of.
so to my mind, it's not that dramatic. It's a half floor higher.
Which would be 52 feet, which is the 13 feet that we have everywhere else.
It's not a half floor high.
Show me your logic, because we just kind of tried to pencil it out here.
If this is the road, the sidewalk, and then this is the property. Okay, and the house sits right here. understand the building around here is right here.
I guess the question is, so
So-
this is the front property line, right?
Yep.
Yep. So at which elevation?
What?
Where is the property line, at this elevation or this elevation?
It could be either one, but if a person here,
So it's how in the bylaw the property line is defined. If it's normally you don't take the z-axis into account in a property line, right? But in this case there is a z-axis. So
I'm just looking in terms of if someone walking along that street, how are they gonna feel? And I'm saying they're gonna feel like it's a tower.
So just to recap, so
But they're also all set back.
just
Sorry.
a second. So just to recap, last week we voted to include a portion of the map towards the Lexington border. And it was a close vote. I actually voted against it, but the vote carried. And so I think this is Utiel's interpretation of our request. And honestly, I don't see that many better solutions. So unless we're gonna vote to rescind our vote from last time.
I'm not asking you to do that, I'm asking you just to avoid it on Paul Revere Road, that south side.
Would you like to
That's what I did.
make a motion?
You asked me and I did. I said to delete that on the south side of Paul Revere Road. Everywhere else, if you add it along the heights, I'm okay with, because it's not that height difference. I just brought up that one there, and I think it's an issue. We have to look at this. I don't want it to
So you
slide.
want to remove that very long, narrow, rectangular shape, that kind of trapezoidal
It's
shape.
like
and
snaky. No,
Yeah,
it's
that snaky
that's
one
that,
right
yeah.
there. What about the one next to it?
This one here, I have less issues with. It is also high, very high plane. Okay, but that right there faces right on Mass Ave.
Right.
Okay, it doesn't face along this alleyway here. I mean, this street here. Okay.
Okay, got it. I just wanted to know what you wanted to get rid of.
I mean, I drive on that road all the time. I know what I'm talking about there. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
so I drive this road a lot too. I want to just make sure we check in with Matthew and Rahe here before we do that, because I'm a little concerned that, that's only 7.5 acres right now. Also, you wouldn't be able to get rid of just one side of Paul Revere Road, right? Because of continuity, you would be getting rid of both sides of Paul Revere Road.
Why?
If we
Why?
Well, let's see what Matthew
Okay, so
says.
let's hear from Matthew. Yeah.
That's correct, because the north of Paul Revere Road, those bits are fragmented from each other. And then if you removed everything around Paul Revere Road, you're probably under 5 acres, and you have a kind of a funny fragment district.
So
I think
right,
that's very
so-
weak excuse to say that because we have
The
we need
motion-
5 acres. Let's make something really bad there.
no. So Kin, though, right? The options the options that we have available to us, right, are to remove the whole thing, right? Remove the whole extension. They are to remove that section of Paul Revere Road and ask Utiel to add something more there to make sure we're above 5 acres, right, along, toward Arnold Street or that direction, right, or to stay with what we have, right? I think those are the sort of 3 options that we have before us. I'm certainly willing to enter,
I like to add the 4th. How come there's
Okay.
nothing on the north of Mass Ave? It's just everything's on the south, which is the hill. Why can't we add on the south, on the north of that?
ERB has staked a claim to.
Just don't get off that.
No,
That's the reason.
That's the reason.
That's the reason.
I think Kin means beyond the Arlington Heights Business District, right?
Like
North of
over here, up north of the bike path.
so basically
Not
between
contiguous
in the-
to, not touching Mass Ave. It would not be touching Mass Ave in any way.
Well, let's stop back this way, okay? I'm saying what you're creating there is ugly space, ugly zoning, okay? I will not accept to leave it there because it beats the 5 acres. it's easier to do, it's whatever, okay? I won't like that, okay? So if you guys can figure another way to get to 5 acres, I have all the faith in you to be able to do that. Okay, I just don't want to do something that's not good.
Okay,
That's what I'm saying.
and I hear what you're saying, but we have never looked at this map lot by lot, and just because we actually can all visualize, those of us who drive this stretch of Paul Revere Road really easily, now we're gonna make a lot by lot decision. We've never made a lot by lot decision in all of this. So I don't know when.
You just told me we can't do it on this because this lot is a historic building. This building is the
Those
church.
were given to us as constraints by the redevelopment board. Other than that, we have not looked lot by lot. Once we start looking lot by lot here, we should look lot by lot at all sorts of places, and all the people who come to us and said they don't think their street should be considered because it's a private way, or whatever else. This is not what we've been doing as a group. We have not been cherry picking this way.
Well, but listen, there's a proposal on the table. Yeah, I think we should kind of move to a
Maybe
decision.
we should vote.
Yes, so,
Pick
right,
one.
so
There should be a
you
motion.
pick which part you want to motion, right? I think you've got you have several options, right? You could move that we, move this to the north side, right, between the res and Lowell Street, right? Is that Lowell? That's Lowell, right? Yeah, between the res and Lowell Street. You could move that we, remove that section of Paul Revere and make the other side bigger, or you could move that the whole thing be removed. I'm open to any of those motions.
I'd be okay just to move the south side of Paul Revere Road because it's such a hill, and to replace it somewhere
But I'm
else.
telling you,
And to replace it somewhere else. And I don't know where else because I don't know. I haven't looked at it yet. I can't just say somewhere else just because it makes it easier to end today's meeting. I'm not going to do that. If you want me to come back with a suggestion next week or the following week, I will do that. But I will not say move it somewhere else just because we want to end the meeting today.
I mean, just a quick look at this, and it's not an area that I know very well, but along Lowell Street, there's an area that could be, that is served by a bus line, and that could be an equally decent 5 acre zone. Can we kind of ask that the planning department and UT will just take a look at this and make a recommendation as part of what they're putting to the ARB?
I'm okay with that.
Or just to make it simpler, so we don't have to reinvent the whole thing. I mean, what if you move to just include this block here instead of this, and then you've got the 5 acre contiguous.
I don't know because I didn't look there.
Yeah,
Okay?
I didn't look there either. I'm just
so-
looking at the map.
So I like what Vince says, and let Claire and you
Okay.
look at it and come up with a suggestion, and because they'll spend some time and look at things. But I don't want to just pick things at the end of the meeting just because we want to end the meeting.
With the understanding that we may also lose the other two plots on the other side of Paul Revere Road.
I'm sure they understand all the requirements.
No, I just want to understand that if we were to vote yes, that we get rid of the south side, the snake and the trapezoid, we may have to get rid of the other side too.
But we're not voting that. I think at this point what we're saying is we ask the professionals to look at a section option and to see which one seems to make more sense and kind of make a judgment call that they'll present to the ARB. If the ARB wants to take a second crack at it.
Okay,
So there's no real vote here except a request that be looked at.
and that's fine.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, with that, let me just double check my agenda here. I appreciate everybody's patience as we go a little bit late here. Claire, am I?
We need AC.
Tanya has her hand up.
Oh, yes,
Ajay.
Holly, yeah.
I just want to note that you all have empowered Claire and Laura to change the zoning language, but not the map. So it might be worth
Oh, well, we're
voting
not
on that, or
voting
I think-
on changing the map, right?
I think we're not changing the map. What we're asking Util and Claire to do is to come up with a second option to offer to the ARB at their September hearing.
But what are we?
Did I say what?
So, am I submitting this picture to the state
Oh, for their
pre-adoption review? Because when do you have to do that? Do you have I have to do it by the end of this week. Yeah.
I mean, would you be comfortable with that, Ken, given if we said the request that the two options be roughly equal in size and capacity?
I'm fine with that because
then it's kind of
the ARB was going to also have a whack at looking and maybe some changes anyways. So I'm not worried about that. So yes, that's fine.
So this map.
This map.
Great.
Got it.
This map. Great. Thank you for that clarification, Talia.
Wonderful.
Anything else from staff that we need to have clarified or that I haven't covered?
They're thinking. Wait a second.
Yep. Yeah. I'm not gonna. Yep.
So do we need to vote on that proposal?
I don't think so. I think that's
Okay.
that's the baseline.
All right, I think you guys voted on it already.
Yeah.
You guys approved it.
Talia, Marissa,
There's a lot of them.
they seem to think that's it.
With the understanding
Okay.
that this group is not meeting again next week, that you won't have an option to see those two scenarios.
That's okay. It's good.
Until it's at the
ARB will
ARB.
see it.
The ARB will take a look
The
at it.
ARB will see it.
All right.
And just a question about the ARB meeting. You know, I plan to attend if I can. Is the expectation or hope that the working group would be present and kind of in any way participating officially in that meeting, or only as private citizens, or you know?
So the way that it works is the working group will make a recommendation to the ARB, and the ARB will engage in discussion about the recommendation and make any tweaks or alterations that they think, you know, they could make. I don't anticipate many because what we're submitting is pretty big, and hopefully at that point will be pre-reviewed by the state. But they may have some comments about some parcels. You know, I really don't know what they may discuss at that point. But those are public hearings related to the town meeting. They open on September 11th.
So, but I guess if from Vince's question, will members of the working group get to speak, answer questions, give explanation, whatever the heck?
I would think so. You'll take if the board has questions, they'll ask them of Sanjay and myself. We'll take the lead. But and please, you know, come and if you participate and you know, certainly have an opportunity to speak.
Yeah. I think it would be appropriate to notice it as a joint, or notice our meeting, whatever, with
Yeah,
them, so that we can all show up.
Yep.
To adjourn? I'm jumping the gun again.
Second.
Should let the
So,
chair.
as long as staff is satisfied that we have everything we need, I wanted to get a full thumbs up from them about that.
Is the next meeting the 29th?
Are we having a meeting on the
Yeah.
29th?
Yes.
Oh, at this point, yes.
Yep, that's correct. We will not meet next Tuesday. I expect we will meet the 29th.
Okay.
Do you see Steve's hand?
Oh, yep, Steve.
I just have a brief announcement. I'm just about finished with the report with a draft report for the second survey. And I expect to send this around either tomorrow or Thursday evening for people to look at and make suggestions.
Yep, great. Thank you very much, everybody, and I will now take that motion to adjourn. I appreciate everyone's patience getting us to the end tonight. Thank you very much. Kin.
Sanjay, may I make just one comment, please? Building on precedent.
It's quite late, actually. You can send me an email. Kin, may I take your vote, please? Kin, please. I'm asking you to,
asking you to look at the
let's-
parcels that you're
Kin.
rebuilding. Just
Yes.
look at it.
Vince,
Yes.
Meta,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Good night, everyone.